Hi, everybody.
Hello, hello. Welcome back.
Welcome to How to Draw Anything with Lynn and Debbie. And today we even have a special guest, Kenny.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Yeah, you may have had him earlier doing musical story times for you all, which have been very fun. And today we have managed to coerce him into joining us in some of our drawing games that we have planned.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Why don't you introduce yourself, Kenny?
Sure. My name is Kenny. I work for San Mateo County Libraries, and you can find me at the East Palo Alto Library, more specifically.
And Lynn?
Yes, so my name is Lynn. I work for San Mateo County Libraries. You may recognize my face either from the Belmont branch or from some of the other art programs that I've been doing. And last but not least,
I'm Debbie. I work at the Millbrae Library. So thank you all for joining us for How to Draw Anything. Before we start our program, I just want to mention really quickly that this is just one program out of a lot of programs that San Mateo County Libraries is providing. So be sure to go to www.smcl.org to see the whole schedule of programs, including Kenny's musical story time, which is awesome. It's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow morning?
Yes.
At 10:30.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And then we have Ricardo later on today, open labs at 3:30. But just check that whole schedule at smcl.org. And then also one more thing for all you parents out there, if you haven't filled out your census, make sure to go to my2020census.gov to fill out your census. It only takes, just a few minutes. It's very easy. They ask you just a few questions. And the census always helps the community secure funds for healthcare, schools, housing, and more. So it's really important to make yourself count in the census this year. So go to my2020census.gov. All right, Lynn, you want to explain what How to Draw Anything is about?
Sure. So this is a program that is divided up into two parts. The first part will be led by Debbie, in which she will fill her page with a bunch of scribbles, and then Kenny and I get to try and find drawings within them. And then the second part is going to be a bit of a lecture talk by me about how to use reference material for when there's something more specific you want to learn how to draw, but you're not quite sure how to do it.
Awesome. Okay, so let's do part one, which is all about using your imagination to draw today. So first thing you want to do, if you didn't come with us last week, you want to get some supplies. So first of all, you're going to get a couple sheets of paper. And then while you're getting that, I'm also going to show you, you're also going to need some drawing utensils. So you got your pens, you got your markers, you got your pencils too. Everybody got those? Awesome. And then finally, you're going to need one pair of scissors. So we'll do that as an activity for later on. So, all right, everybody, you guys go get your paper and your drawing utensils. I'm going to fire up my iPad to draw. So I'm going to just use my iPad to draw so that you guys can see what I'm drawing really easily. So let me fire that up right now. And it's going to start in 3, 2, 1. Let's see if this works.
Woo.
All right, let's go with How to Draw Anything. So today what we like to do is we're going to be drawing and doodling, and we're going to try to find, special gems in our drawings today. So everybody grab your pencil. I have my little digital pencil right here. And we're going to just doodle some random shapes. So random shapes, I'm going to just do this like, I don't know, this like kind of spirally shape here. And then maybe I'll do this rounded triangle here. And then what shape should I do here? Last week I did a close my eyes. Maybe I'll just try it again. Okay. So just 3 random drawings that random doodles that I have here. Go ahead and do that on your piece of paper too. And then now what we're going to use is the power of our imaginations to try to find something that we can draw and develop with these shapes that we just drew. So, hey, Kenny, what do you think about this top left shape that I drew? Do you see any like something that I can develop out of that little spiral?
Yeah, I feel like I kind of see something, honest with you, all three shapes.
Oh, all three? What do you see?
Well, it looks, okay, I have an eyeball on top left, a possible eyeball on top right, and then like a nose, like almost like a beak maybe?
I see it. I see it.
I can see that.
What if I can use that as inspiration, and I can kind of draw like a little character in the corner here. So maybe I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to go like that, and I'm going to just, because I kind of see what you're talking about, and I'm wondering if we're kind of seeing like the same thing. Like I kind of see that triangle nose as being like an animal nose.
Yeah.
Like a bird beak.
And then what was the other shape? It's like a weird looking eye.
He's got some wonky vision.
It can be like a patch. Maybe it's a pirate.
Oh yeah. That's good inspiration. I like it.
Oh, it's a little pirate bird.
I'm gonna. Oh, actually, I made him like. Yeah.
It's shifting.
You saw something else. This is what I saw. And then for some reason, I'm going to make him into a bear. That's fun.
Yeah.
We just like made something out of those three shapes together, which was, I like how you use a different perspective in what you saw from the doodles. You want to know what I was thinking of with this spiral?
Ooh, what were you thinking of? I was thinking of a seashell.
Oh, I was thinking of this.
A little snail.
I did see a little snail.
Very cute. No.
And then I made him angry. He's evil.
He needs a goatee. An evil snail goatee.
You thought he was nice.
Give him a pirate. Give him a pirate patch too.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
yes.
We're building a crew.
we're making a whole crew. I like it.
And I feel like this may be a little extra, but I feel like he needs like a skull and crossbones on his snail shell.
On his shell? Let's see,
Yeah.
Like a flag or something?
Like a tattoo?
Oh. He's a
hardcore snail.
He's got the mom tattoo, of course, and then he's got the skull and crossbones. This was one tough snail, you guys.
He's decked out.
I think we have a theme going on here. So, what about this shape? Lynn, do you see anything here? Oh, man. Or, let's see. Or the triangle. Take your pick.
I mean, right now the triangle is making me think of a pizza slice because that's my lunch today.
Pizza again.
I'm trying to think of something else.
I can make it pirate pizza if you want.
Yeah, maybe they're having a celebratory pizza. They just came back from a successful pirating trip.
Yep. They all have eye problems. Every single one of them.
That's how they made their crew.
Yep.
Yeah. What do we think pirates like on their pizza?
Yeah. What do pirates like?
Anchovies? First thing comes to mind, fish, right?
Yeah.
What does anchovies look like?
I think
like
you
a little
draw,
sardine,
like, little fish shapes, and close enough.
Goldfish work.
Oh yeah, like the goldfish cracker.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give. He's got pepperoni too.
He's a pizza you don't want to mess with.
Yes. Still probably delicious though. Mushroom too. All right. One more.
All right.
Oh gosh. This one. I think I see something. Anybody else?
I want to know what you see.
Okay. I'm gonna erase a little bit just to give it, it's more like inspiration. Wait, sorry. Put it here.
Is it a worm pirate?
I was
Or
trying to make it a rattler.
A snake pirate.
I can make it a cobra.
Ooh.
Maybe. If I knew how to draw a cobra. Now it looks like an eel.
I mean, that works too.
We can make it an eel. This is all about brainstorming and inspiration and doodling. So we can make it whatever we want. But look at
There's
this.
no wrong way to do this one, right?
That's true.
Not
look
at
at
all.
this awesome pirate posse we just made, you guys.
I want to know who the captain is.
Who do you think?
I think the snail's my favorite.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the snail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Gonna
the
nominate
captain.
snail.
Okay. Maybe what we should do is like kind of work on the snail. Cause
like the tattoos are like badges of honor, you know. So the snail has been in the game for a little bit longer than the other three.
That's true. You're right. So we just used our pencils, you know, to do all these little doodles. And now we have like a great posse of characters. I feel like we could, you know, polish all of them up. But for time's sake, we're going to just polish up one of them. And I think we're going to go with that Captain Snail, right?
All right.
All right. So I'm going to, everybody, now that you've done your pencil drawings, you want to switch to your markers or, you know, your big crayons and whatnot. And we're going to just kind of tighten up our drawing to make it look a little bit better. So we did, we kind of used a rough pencil for this. And now I'm going to use my marker. Did I choose a marker yet? Okay, I got my pen now. And we're going to try to make this snail look a little bit better than what we already did. So right now it doesn't look too bad, but.
Are your inks on a new layer?
Yes.
Okay.
And when you do your inks, it's not necessarily, you're not tracing every line perfectly. You're just kind of like using your pencils as a guide to make your drawing look a little bit better. And usually a snail has that. Kind of thinking about his head right now. Because I'm not that crazy about his head, but I don't know what I'm doing exactly. So
It still gets the image across.
yeah, I think so. Okay. Because he's smiling and he has these mean eyebrows, that means he's evil.
Yes.
If I made him, let's see, I'm going to take away the pencils real quick. If I made him like this, he just looks like he's mad. But when he's smiling.
No, he's enjoying himself.
Yes. That's a bad scenario. So I'm going to put those pencils back on and then I'm going to.
That's a snail that knows exactly what his life choices have been.
He's up to no good. And then I'm going to just work on those tattoos. Make them maybe a little bit bigger, more prominent. Anybody else have extra tattoos they want to add? Or are these good for now?
Maybe a mermaid.
Yeah. So you notice, again, I'm not tracing exactly over my pencils. I'm kind of just trying to ignore my pencils as much as I can, just using it as reference. And then as a mermaid, try to freehand this mermaid.
It could also just be a fish. A fish with really long hair.
That's my mermaid attempt.
That's a great mermaid.
He got a bad deal at the tattoo parlor.
It's not his favorite tattoo.
Or a really good deal. Maybe it was just a really cheap deal.
That's true.
Yeah, he got exactly what he paid for.
That's true. All right. So we're doing
Plus, since he's a pirate, he probably didn't even pay, so it's really what he paid for.
You're right.
True.
You're right. And then I'm going to give him a little snail trail here. And then snails have little antenna, right?
This one does.
Mhm.
Okay. So now, so I think I'm finished inking it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change to my eraser. Just kind of take away all those pencil marks that I made at first. Just so we can kind of see like the final product of the inked drawing. And now I kind of don't like how I inked this antenna. I'm just going to fix it real quick. Okay.
Once you clean up your pencils, you're left with a nice, clean, polished version.
Yeah. And now, maybe do we have time to color?
Yes, we do.
Okay, we'll color real quick. What color do you think we want this shell to be?
Gold.
Gold. Oh my gosh. Like shiny gold?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a pirate.
Yeah,
He is his own treasure.
This is he got a gold-plated shell. Wow. He is rich.
He's been very successful at sea.
Yes, he has. So I'm just gonna give him some shiny shine. So now he's shiny gold. I'm gonna just tattoo up or color his tattoos a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about his body? What color do you think his body's gonna be?
Green.
Green? Okay.
Yeah.
He's
Give me a slimy green.
What kind of green?
Or give me a slimy green.
You
Not that he's a slimy guy. Very
like
nice guy.
what about this? Is this okay?
Yeah.
It's kind of like
The color of evil.
yes. All right, almost done. And I'm kind of a messy colorer, but that's all right. He leaves lots of snail trails because he's kind of gross, slimy too. And he colored this mermaid.
Maybe the
real
gold
quick.
shells to try and compensate.
Oh, that's true. He's trying to hide all of his. Okay, I think we're almost done, guys.
All right.
And then just get some color in the mermaid real quick. All right, look at that, you guys.
He's so cute for an evil snail pirate captain.
And then we're not done though, you guys.
Ooh.
Not done. So one more thing I want to do is we have to name our snail that we just made. Also slimy. He's slimy. Shiny and slimy. What do you guys think? Do you have any name suggestions for our snail? I keep thinking slimy.
It's a good start.
Captain?
Captain
Slimy?
Captain Slimy.
Captain.
Yeah, Captain Slimy. Captain, let's see, gold. what we're doing now is we're just kind of brainstorming, coming up with as many words, kind of jogging our imaginations. It's kind of like doodling where, you know, the more you draw, the more that you might, you know, figure out like something that you want to draw more and more because you drew something very special. So now we're just kind of coming up with like lots of words and so that we can try to figure out the name of this character here.
The gold shell is making me think of that one character from Moana, and I cannot for the life of me remember that character's name.
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched that movie.
I know the song.
Uh-huh.
Sing it. Maybe
sing
Oh gosh, no. I tried. I can't. I'm too shiny. It's something like that.
Uh-huh. Shelly. Captain Shell. Tough. Evil.
Tough nut.
Tough
Captain
nut.
Tough Shell.
Ooh. Captain Tough Shell?
That's going to be my vote.
What do you think, you guys? Captain Tough Shell? Yeah?
I like Captain Tough Shell.
All right. Captain Tough Shell. Congratulations,
he gave himself.
Yeah. Dude, we just made this cool new character, you guys. Yay. Captain Tough Shell by Lynne, Kenny, and Debbie. Woo! High fives, everybody.
That looks awesome.
So now that we have our original character, what we'll probably want to do is maybe we want to write stories for Captain Tough Shell, right? Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to show you guys how to make a comic out of one sheet of paper so that we can potentially, you know, write stories for Captain Tough Shell now that we have his little, what he looks like, and we can just start writing backstories for him and whatnot. So now you got, actually, Kenny, what did you draw? I forgot to.
give me like
okay,
1
all
minute.
right. Okay, we'll do this mini comic and then we're going to do show and tell later, okay? All right, so everybody go ahead and grab your piece of paper. If you missed this last week, we're just repeating it again this week so that you can learn how to make a comic with one sheet of paper. So grab your piece of paper. First thing you're going to do is you're going to fold it. You're going to fold it in half. And this is that hamburger style rather than hot dog style, which is kind of that long and skinny where you're matching up those long edges of the paper. What we're doing now is we're matching up the shorter edges of the paper, and we fold it into this paper that's kind of short and wide like a hamburger. Okay, next thing we're going to do is fold it again. And you're going to fold it again, hamburger style. All right, so we got this. And then one more fold, hamburger style again. And this is when it gets a little tough when you're folding it because the paper gets real thick and it's hard to crease it down, but you want to try to get those creases as nice and crisp as possible. So now you have that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to open up your piece of paper. And now you should have a sheet of paper that has 8 panels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you see that, then that means you're doing a great job so far. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to fold it hamburger one more time. And you'll notice like when you kind of see your folds. Now it's like kind of divided into 4. We're going to cut from the folded side of the paper. Make sure you cut from here, not from the open side. You're going to cut from this folded side of the paper along this line, and you're going to stop right in the center of the paper. So again, you're going to cut from this folded edge from the middle all the way to the center. And then you're going to stop cutting right there. Now you have a piece of paper that kind of walks. And when you open up the paper, it should look like this. So you got you have a slit in the sheet. So now what you're going to do is you're going to fold it again, but this time it's going to be a hot dog style fold. Yes. And so you're going to hold your piece of paper on the edge like this. And then when you turn it, you should see like this diamond shape. And when you see this diamond shape, you're going to squish your diamond. Squish, and you're going to flatten that paper just like that. So again, I'm gonna demonstrate it again. So when you hold your paper like this, and you see that diamond, you're gonna just kind of squish that together. Zoop. And then when you have that, you're gonna just fold along those creases again. And ta-da! You have a comic book, well, an empty comic book that you can fill with whatever you want. You can make it a zine. You can write make it a diary, whatever you want. Or you can make it into a comic with your character that you just made, such as Captain Tough Shell. So, and this is how it looks when it's all empty. But I'm going to show you the character that we made last week, which was Rex. I kind of started this, the Adventures of Rex. I didn't finish the comic, but I did draw in it. So I drew more drawings of Rex in here. I used Lynne's reference tips. I looked up what a fox looks like, and I kind of made Rex into a more realistic looking fox.
You look good.
Thank you. And then I drew more drawings of Rex with color this time. Hello, everyone. My name is Rex. He's got his nice green Argyle sweater that we drew last time.
He looks very cozy.
Yes. And I decided he likes to drink tea. I like to drink tea too. And this is his buddy, Birdie. He's got a friend that's a bird. So that's what I drew in my my little comic that I started last week about Rex, which Lynne and I came up with last week. So that's how you draw anything. Part one with using your imagination. So everybody else, when you're done with your drawings, you want to keep drawing, keep using your imagination, and write stories for your characters. Hey, Kenny, you done? Show us what you got.
I mean, this can go on for hours. But have any of y'all seen that TV show Nailed It, by the way? It's like a baking show. And I feel like this should be a perfect opportunity of me to say, nailed it.
Nice.
I love it.
I gave him some shoes, a little bit more comfortable. He's got the whole like Street Fighter Guile thing going on, which is nice.
Yeah, I dig the mohawk.
That's awesome, Kenny. He's super tough. Did you name that character too?
Not yet.
Okay.
Well, this is my rendition of.
We can do that later. Yes. Awesome. All right. So I think we're going to turn it over to Lynne now for part 2 of how to draw anything.
All right. Let me just get my own little setup up and running. So we just had the fun time of making a character using purely our own imagination. It's something that no one has ever seen before. That's super cool. But every now and again, what you're trying to draw may be something that you want to look a little more realistic. It's something that already exists. You want to make it look like that thing, but you may not necessarily know how. So I'm going to 2, 1, share my iPad screen. There we go. And welcome to How to Draw Anything, Part 2. So, the question is, how can you learn how to draw anything? The answer basically boils down to use reference. So, how exactly do you go about using reference? Well, the very first thing you want to do is step 1, sit yourself down and just draw the thing. You don't want to look at any pictures of the thing in real life. You just want to bring up a image of it in your head and draw it down as best you can. So in this case, the example we're going to use is that of a cat. So you sit down, you grab your pen and paper, and you draw that cat. Congratulations! You've drawn a cat? It's mostly a cat. You can tell it's meant to be a cat. But you may have noticed while you were in the process of drawing this cat that you ran into some questions. Like, for instance, how does the face work? What is happening with the legs? Is this really where the tail goes? These questions are good things, and they are things you're going to want to keep in mind because we are going to get back to them. But for now that we have accomplished our step 1, we are going to jump into step 2, which is Google it or use Pinterest or any other photo collecting site that you can, whatever is your preference. Because what you want to do is you want to start building a collection of pictures of the thing that you are trying to learn how to draw. Photographs are the best to learn from because they are going to give you an unbiased sense of the anatomy of what it is you're trying to draw. Whereas if you start with an artist's interpretation, you may find yourself trying to imitate how they read the image first. So the ideal is to get pictures of the thing in different actions, at different angles, in different poses, just however many pictures either you or your device of choice can possibly stand to contain. And so once you have collected all of these pictures, we are going to start using them with step 3. Tracing. Now, you may have heard that tracing is a bad thing, that it's something that you should avoid. This is not necessarily true. What matters is how you trace something. So in this case, you'll recall that first time you tried to draw a cat, you had questions. You didn't know how things connected. You didn't know how this thing worked. Tracing is where you find those answers. So while you are going over top your images, you want to start asking yourself, what kind of shapes do you see in the thing that you're trying to draw? What is the general distance between certain key features? How does it feel to have your hand move along the outline of the body? And the more images that you are able to trace and sort of extrapolate this information from, the more you will start to find certain patterns that emerge out of the thing. Now, obviously, I am using digital art for this presentation and for the art that I'm doing, mostly for the ease of being able to share my screen, but you should not feel limited in this particular step, especially if you don't have that option. What you can always do if you have the availability is you can print out your reference pictures. And if you grab a blank piece of paper and layer it on top of it, you should still be able to see the image you printed underneath, and you can draw directly on top of that. Or if it's a little bit too light of a picture and you're still having trouble, if you hold it up against a window, it becomes your very own light box. Now, one thing you may find yourself running into while you are trying to trace something is you are looking at the picture in question and you are just unable to see any of the shapes. You're just looking at this and it's just a cat. I can only see a cat. I don't understand where you're getting shapes from. A kind of easy workaround in order to get past that is if you just follow the basic outline of the thing that you are trying to draw. And then you take that picture away. You may find you have an easier time seeing what shapes are left behind underneath. Where, for instance, if we connect these lines here, we can see, oh, hey, the head is basically a circle. And then we can see, oh, hey, that leaves the ears behind as being nice little triangles. So that's kind of an easy hack around in order to really start diving into what shapes are making this picture that I'm trying to trace over up. So this is a step that you can repeat as many times as you can possibly stand. The more variety you do, the better, because what we are going to do next is we are going to take all of that information we just learned from tracing. Oh, and these are a few more examples. I always forget I have this slide. So the blue lines are essentially following the outline. The red lines are following the distance. These are just some examples of how you can take your original reference pictures and go over top them looking for certain shapes and certain distances between key features. But like I was saying, once you have exhausted yourself in tracing, we can move into the next step, which is copying. So for this step, what you are going to do is you are going to once again take your reference pictures, but this time, instead of drawing directly on top of them, you are going to either find a blank part of your canvas or find a new blank sheet of paper, and you are going to freehand copy the images that you have selected for yourself. So a lot of these pictures that I have here are all nice and cleaned up, but every single one of them started out like these guys here, in which I first marked down the shapes that I had previously observed in the cats, and then started polishing them up based directly on the pictures that I was looking at. So this is where you essentially put your hand to the test to be able to imitate the different lines and distances and shapes that you were observing the first time when you were tracing over the image directly. And so once again, this is something where you can do as much or as little as you can possibly stand it. It's all about what you're having fun with and what you feel like you're learning. So let's try just a little live example of that right now. So I have my reference picture here. And so instead of drawing directly on top of it, what I'm going to instead do is be like, okay, I can see that the head is more or less a circle shape. And I can see that the ears are more or less little triangles. And you just sort of continue down that way. You look back at the picture, you sort of try to read in the lines you would be seeing there, and then on your own page, you do your best to draw them out, and you can clean these images up as much or as little as you like. And once again, the more variety of pictures that you are able to do this with, the more you will start finding certain patterns that stay the same regardless of like what angle or pose the thing you're trying to draw is in. And all of this is going to lend itself into the final step on how to learn how to draw anything, which is referencing. So what exactly is referencing? In short, referencing is essentially the ability to take a picture, which is your reference picture, to be able to read in that picture what specific shapes and distances make up the thing that you're trying to draw, and then take that information and reinterpret it so that you can then use it in whatever your own drawing is. So this is the part where you can start transforming the pictures, essentially. So for instance, let's say for whatever apocalyptic reason, this is the only picture of a cat left on the internet. There is no other reference in existence. It's a travesty. You really needed to draw a cat, but not in this pose. So what referencing allows us to do is to be able to look at this single lone picture of a cat and be able to see, okay, I can tell that the head is basically a circle. I can tell that the facial features line up like this. I can tell the ears are triangles. I can tell it has a tiny scruff of a neck before it connects with the rest of its body in kind of an ovally square shape. And you just continue down that line, taking the information in that picture and transforming it until it fits the pose that you wanted to draw. Because sometimes you may not be able to find the exact picture that you wanted to recreate yourself. And so being able to both interpret and reinterpret the images in your reference pictures, that gives you a huge range of freedom in what you can then proceed to do with your art. And that, in effect, is, once I delete all my sketchy lines, is how you learn how to draw anything. And sometimes, even after this whole entire process, you may still find yourself feeling like, I have drawn this cat and I can still see all the mistakes that I made in it and trying to make it look realistic. I now know the eyes don't look like that. I now know that the way I drew the chest is wrong. These are not necessarily bad things, because your ability to recognize the mistakes you made in your art means that you have learned how to draw that thing. It means that you now have the foundation to start taking steps forward and improving it in whatever direction you want, whether you want it to be more realistic or whether you want it to be more cartoony. So if you find yourself correcting your own work, congratulations. That means you have learned how to draw the thing. All right, and that is, in effect, my little presentation. So Debbie, Kenny, is there something we want to try and maybe put into practice that we can try draw together?
What should we make Lynne draw, Kenny?
Let's go mermaid.
Mermaid.
Ooh, okay. Okay, I'm gonna do, I have my own mermaid character and I'm desperately trying to decide whether I should be drawing her or not.
Should we give you something different then?
It's okay. I'll do 2 passes. I'll do, because she's very deliberately like, she's meant to be a parody of mermaids. She's just a fish, but she looks like a mermaid.
Aww.
Let's see. So when I'm left to my own devices and draw mermaids, I tend to draw her.
Great looking mermaid.
Yeah.
That is mermaid.
Yep, a mermaid with beady little eyes and very sharp teeth and a thirst for fish. But most people probably think of something a little prettier than that. Let's give her really long eyelashes. Something a little more like Ariel. But in the case of drawing a mermaid, it's a bit of an interesting thing to approach because it's something a lot of people draw, but it's something that technically does not exist. So you kind of have 2 directions you can go in. It's a shock, I know. Let's give her some very badly drawn starfish. So in the case of drawing a mermaid, either you can try and study a more realistic angle first, which would essentially boil down to how do you draw a person from the waist up, and how do you draw a fish from their quote-unquote waist down. So I think what I am going to do, so those were my first passes and clearing them just for space. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what Google suggests to me first. If we get a character, we'll try and draw the character first. Yep, it's Ariel. Everything's Ariel. Sure, let's try and learn how to draw Ariel. So once again, I'm using digital art. It allows me to do certain cheats like being able to save and then copy photos directly into my art program, so I have the ease of referencing them all in one sort of screen. But as I was saying before, this is something that you should not feel limits you and your ability to learn how to draw something. So trying to learn how to draw someone else's art style as well is something that's particularly interesting, because there's a few different ways to go about it and a few new kind of questions you can be asking yourself. Because, for instance, the way I would draw Ariel is not necessarily the way Disney has drawn Ariel. And you may find yourself getting frustrated, like, what am I doing differently? So in this particular case, if we look a little closer at her, one interesting thing is we can see they don't use like solid color lines. So she's drawn in almost a lineless art style with a bit more realistic shading. Whereas if we were to do a pass where we're trying to draw the lines, you may feel it's not feeling right because the shadows that are making her up feel much harsher than they do in the reference picture. So depending on like how close in terms of imitating what they've done, those are sort of different things that you can play with. So you can see that's not a very good freehand of what they've done. Let's get rid of that. But for now, let's see what shapes we can observe and how they chose to draw her. So Ariel has a very small baby face with a very pointy chin and a very sort of exaggerated curve in towards the eye. It looks like her ear is probably pretty small. It's almost the exact same size as her eye. Her eyes are very large. Her nose is pretty small. And these are all pretty standard observations for Lady Disney characters. These are very common things that you'll find when looking at them. Skinny little neck. And even though she's got a very baby-shaped head, it's very big in proportion to the rest of her body. Yeah, I'm drawing directly on top of it. Oh, well, that's fine.
Yeah. I always think about her hair, so big.
Yeah, her hair is a really key identifying feature. So it looks like she has a very off to the side part that sort of curves around her forehead before it stays fairly neatly. Let's see. So if we were to connect this shape, that's effectively where her skull is. So her hair is very, very floofy. She's underwater. Yeah. She gets all the wonderful, lovely movement of it perpetually being underwater. So this is a step in which you can just sort of start getting a feeling of how does it feel to draw on top of Ariel? What is your wrist doing? How does your hand move as you're trying to follow the lines? And you may also find that one of the interesting things in doing a close case study, especially of someone else's art, is what kind of proportions they chose to use and how often completely exaggerated from reality those are. So for instance, in following this and in sort of like double checking distance between things, I think her hips are about as big as her skull.
No. Wow,
like, I think approximately. Like, it's not that far off.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And you can also use these sort of proportions to get a sense of like how tall the character is. So a lot of character art is measured in terms of quote unquote head height, which is essentially how many heads tall are they based on how big their head is. So a very rough estimate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like she's about 6 heads tall for her own proportions. So let's give it a shot. Let's see how well we can do this. So we got a circle head to start. I personally like to map out the ears first because that gives me an idea of where the jawline lines up. She's got a very, very pointy chin and a very exaggerated cheek curve out. And one of the fun things as well about sort of trying to draw a character that already exists is that even as you're trying to copy them, you may find yourself naturally leaning towards certain different interpretations of that character in terms of like maybe how you draw the eyes or how you draw the nose or whatever key sort of facial features there are. So for instance, a lot of my art style is a little less Disney in terms of how I do eyes and a lot more admittedly anime. And so I tend to leave gaps in certain places that Disney would not. But one of the fun sort of things is you can start to, in turn, get a sense of what features need to stay the same in order to make it so the character is still identifiable as the character. So for instance, an easy sort of way of seeing this in action is if you look at Western comics and you see all the different artists and how they each interpret the exact same character, but in noticeably different styles. And so you can ask yourself, like, for instance, what makes Superman Superman so that I can identify him even when it's like a bajillion different artists who are all reinterpreting him? Like, what is the commonality here? So in the case of Ariel, even though I'm currently kind of structuring her face a little differently, I feel like the fact that we can see the way her hair works, like specifically that really exaggerated side part, she's already kind of pretty identifiable as being Ariel as opposed to, let's say, Belle or Cinderella.
Draw that floof.
Yeah. That floof is very important for her. The nice little cute wavy curls that she's got in her hair. Let's see. Debbie, out of curiosity, do you ever find yourself drawing other people's characters very much, or do you mostly stick with your own creations?
I tend to stick to my own creations just to kind of, I like to use my imagination as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to just draw my own characters, but occasionally it is fun to, see like the structure, like what you kind of mentioned earlier, like the Disney way of drawing.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting to like kind of observe and deconstruct like how certain people will draw their characters and what works about them. So
yeah, and Disney in particular has very strong. They're a very interesting kind of case study because even though certain elements of how they do their art changes film to film, you will often find that there is still sort of like a very Disney way of how they approach different types of character design. So like there's a very sort of consistent look to like what makes a Disney lead.
Right. one thing I like to do with like my friends who also draw is I ask them to like pencil a drawing, and you know, sometimes they're like they like to draw superheroes or whatnot. And I'm not a big superhero. I don't draw superheroes at all. But I've enjoyed in the past like having, you know, taking my friends' pencils of like Spider-Man, say, and then I get a chance to like ink it. And that's kind of, you know, it's kind of like what you're saying, you know, when you're tracing, you know, like an existing drawing, and just like inking somebody else's pencil drawing in a style that you're not used to is like, it's very informative. I always feel like it's also fun because it's like, it's different, you know, it's a good challenge for myself, but I definitely enjoyed, you know, working with other people and kind of collaborating that way.
But yeah, it can be very fun to sort of like try and get a sense of how other people create things. And sometimes you can even go deeper than that. So for instance, in the case of the fact that we're doing a mermaid, we may be able to go even further and sort of be like, okay, obviously ladies with fishtails don't really exist. So what did they use in order to reference her having a fishtail? Like, what did the original artist look at that in turn led itself to her character creation?
When you look at that drawing, it does look like a fish that's kind of eating her.
Yeah, if you look too closely.
I think
all right, it's
really
a little
cool
sketchy, but it's kind of a first pass. But that is.
I was gonna say, I think it's also really cool to see someone like draw, like for instance, Lynn and you and Debbie have each your own unique styles of drawing. So even like you watching you draw Ariel here, and like it's clearly in your style, and it's so cool because you're just like taking this like image that whoever person at Disney drew, but you're like giving it your own like pizzazz on it, and I think that's really cool to see too. Like this is to see it like come to life.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's something that your own style is sort of developed organically as well. Like the more you draw, the more you'll notice sort of your own patterns in how you're interpreting things and how your hand moves in comparison to what you saw in the original picture. But yeah, one of the fun things is like you said, Kenny, even though you can tell that this is sort of my interpretation of Ariel, you can still tell that it's Ariel. And it's very fun to sort of ask yourself the questions of like, what is the key identifying features here? And how can I use that to sort of branch off into something that is completely now my own?
Absolutely.
So for instance, to bring it a little full circle, because I think we got a couple minutes more, I can do it very quickly. I started this version off by saying like, oh, I have my own Little Mermaid character. But obviously one of the first things I ever saw in terms of mermaids was The Little Mermaid. A lot of my assumptions of how do mermaids work came from that. And so you can even still see some of those things carrying over in terms of my mermaid character having like long, flowing, luscious hair in terms of my interpretation of it. Like when I color it, I tend to color her hair pink. So there's still like a direct one-to-one connection, but it's something that has, over the years, given me a basis to form my own version of a mermaid, even though it started off by first seeing someone else's interpretation of it. So she's a little messier than I would normally do her, but it's kind of interesting seeing what sort of characteristics still carried over in terms of how I then myself began to develop. Okay, if I made a mermaid character, what details do I keep to have it still identifiable? All right, and I think that just about puts us at the end of our time. So thank you everyone so much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect my iPad so that we can say thank you once again. I certainly had fun with this. I hope you all did too. If you are willing to stick around, we are going to be having open labs with Ricardo starting in half an hour at 3:30, as well as we are having a bonus extra story time tonight at 7, pajama story time with Michelle, which should be a lot of fun. So please, if you can, stick around. And otherwise, you can always keep up with us at our website at smcl.org. That's the best place to keep an eye out for updates, as well as easy links to all of the cool and fun stuff that we have going on for you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you both for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming, Kenny. It was fun.
Yeah, I would love to do it again.
All right.
All right. We'll keep that in mind. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.